So when conducting a piece of research, it's important that the researcher ensures that it is staying ethical, that any laws are being prevented from being broken, and so that everyone involved in the study feels comfortable with it taking place. So what is meant by ethical and legal? Now, ethical is the moral principles that govern a person's behaviour or the conducting of an activity. So by this we mean what's right and wrong. So it would be morally wrong for a client to receive any emotional or physical harm, such as making the subject distressed or feeling uncomfortable. And legal was working within the boundaries of the civil law. For example, anyone working with children must be CRB checked before doing so. Researchers also have the 4 C's which have been put in place for them to follow in order for their research to run smoothly. The first C is competence. Now this is being skilled in doing something. So in relation to a piece of sport research, you wouldn't take a lactate measurement if you weren't skilled in doing so, as this could lead to physical harm such as bruising. The second C is consent. It is important that informed consent is given by the participant. Now if the participant is underage, then the consent must be given by the parent or guardian. Within this, the subject involved needs to know and understand the procedure of the research, so by this what's involved, any risk or difficulties, and that they have the right to withdraw at any time. So then with this information they can then make an informed decision. However, the consent given must be a signed document by the subject. The third C is confidentiality. This is keeping details private. For example, results should only be shared if the client agrees for the research results to be used. As well as this, subject's details should stay anonymous. For example, instead of writing the results next to the subject's name, you should replace the subject's name with a letter or a number so it stays anonymous. And lastly, the subject's details should be kept locked away in safekeeping and on a need-to-know basis. This shows respect and then allows the client to trust the researcher. The last C is conduct. This is showing professionalism and showing consideration for the subject. For example, making no snide comments towards the results, as this is showing little respect and then can cause emotional harm, which is then trying to be prevented. Before carrying out a piece of research, the researcher must then be in contact with the ethical committee. Now this means that the researcher must fill out an ethical clearance and project proposal form, which is then submitted to the ethics committee, which they read at how, why and what you are conducting, and they'll either then approve the study, so that means the researcher can continue with it, or they decline the study. So this might be because it's not suitable, there could be legal procedures that are being broken, or it may not be ethically correct. They will then tell the researcher which part of the study is not correct and not morally or legally correct, so they can make the changes and then resubmit their study. As well as this, sport researchers can also follow BASIS, which is a professional body for the sport and exercise scientists in the UK. And BASIS stands for the British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences, and it's a website which has a code of conduct which sports scientists must follow when conducting any research. So it's a set of rules that they must follow in order for their sport research to go smoothly. Now within this, it makes sure that they have informed consent, there's confidentiality and data protection, that there's responsibility and competence, and that they have a professional and personal conduct. And then if these aren't followed, then the research could then lose their BASIS accreditation, which then means that in further research they may not be looked up as highly. However, there is implications of not working both ethically or legally. If you don't follow legal procedures of the civil law, it can then lead to prison sentences or fines, such as anyone working with children must be CRB checked, or if any physical harm has is an outcome, then this could then also lead to prison sentences and fine. As well as this, if you don't follow ethical procedures, it can then lead to a physical or emotional harm, which is also trying to be prevented. And if any of these occur, it then can lead to the research losing their BASIS accreditation and their professional research credibility loss, which then means that in further researches they may not be looked up as highly. So the first scenario is the basis of the research is to test whether the younger gymnasts have greater flexibility when they are younger compared to the older gymnasts, or does the flexibility level improve as they get older. This study will be carried out in a normal training session, therefore no consent is needed. As well as this, there will be more random volunteers who will be helping conduct the PNF training, and the results found will be wrote next to the subject's name. To begin with, the results are not being kept confidential, so if there wasn't a good result and the results are shared, this could then lead to snide comments by the researchers or others, which then leads to emotional harm, which is one aspect which is trying to be prevented. As well as this, the P&F training is you need to be skilled in doing so, as it can cause injury, so therefore it fails to meet competence. As well as this, random strangers may not have been CRB checked and are doing physical interaction work with the young gymnasts. Therefore, this can lead to prison sentences and fines. Lastly, no consent has been given, and due to the gymnasts being underage, they need consent from their parents or guardians. They are also using data without the consent, and this could also then lead to prison fines and sentences. Overall, the research would then lose their loss of credibility, and then further studies would not be looked up as high. To prevent this from happening, the researchers should ensure that themselves and the others involved are CRB checked, as well as receiving consent from their parents or guardians before the study, as they are working with children. The second scenario is the base of the research is to work the young gymnasts at higher levels and then to measure their lactate levels. This is done by carrying out the VO2 max test on a treadmill. No ethical clearance and project proposal form has been completed, as it is just a basic test carried out within training. Each gymnast will take one another's lactate measurement and then will need to complete the VO2 max test at the very end without the choice of stopping. The gymnasts begin to go lightheaded when completing the test, and some have passed out and been sick. However, have not stopped due to the researcher making them carry on even though they are not physically able to. So to begin with, no form has been completed, therefore the ethical committee do not know about the study. They may not have approved this study, as it may not be legally or ethically safe. Therefore, to make sure that it is safe in the future or before conducting the study again, the researchers must fill out the ethical clearance and project proposal form and then submit it to the ethical committee. Within this scenario, the researchers also failed to meet competence due to the children taking one another's lactate measurements. They're all not skilled in doing so, and then this could then lead to physical harm, such as bruising. Therefore, to prevent this in the future, they should bring in professionals to take the lactate measurements. Lastly, no consent has been given, so the subject does not know about the risks and understand the study, as well as if they've been told that they have to carry out the test no matter what, and have not been given the right to withdraw. Therefore, to make sure that the subject knows, within the consent, before participating in the study, they should understand any risks or difficulties, and that they have the right to withdraw at any time, so that they can make their informed decision whether they want to be part of the study or not. The third scenario is, the base of the study was to see if a lot of high-intensity training can cause stress. The study was carried out without the gymnasts knowing, as they believed it was a normal training session. The gymnasts were worked as hard as possible until they could not physically carry on, however were not allowed to stop. From being worked so hard, the gymnasts became distressed and having breakdowns. After this, the results were wrote next to the gymnast's name, where the details were shared with others, and snide comments were passed. To begin with, no consent was given, therefore they did not know any risks or what was going on with the study. As well as this, the gymnasts are underage, so the consent would have needed to be given by the parent or guardian of the gymnast. Therefore, before the study in future, they must make sure that consent is given in order to cover their backs in the future. As well as this, they were not allowed to stop, and they should be entitled to withdraw, however, did not know there was a study being conducted. Therefore, before the study was conducted in the future, they must debrief the client on what is going on, any risks or difficulties within the study, and so with the information they can then make their informed decision. As well as this, there is ethical issues, as the gymnasts becoming stressed and had breakdowns. This may not have happened if they were debriefed about what was going on, and if they were debriefed, they may not have wanted to be participating, as if they know they were going to come distressed and have breakdowns, they may not want to be involved. And lastly, it was ethically wrong for the results to be shared, as there was no consent given for the details to be shared as well. Therefore, it is illegal, as the documents shared, and there's no confidentiality and fails to meet data protection, which can then lead to fraud, which is a criminal offence. The snide comments then led to emotional harm, as one another were emotionally attacking one another's results and making everyone feel violated to what the results were given. The fourth scenario is the basis of the study was to see if the gymnasts who smoke would do worse in cardiovascular training compared to non-smokers. Half the group were made to smoke for 3 months before the study, even though they did not smoke previously. The children were told that the smoker would enhance their performance, and that no one should be told that they are smoking. Therefore, no consent was given by the children, nor parent or guardian. One child had asthma and began to struggle when completing the cardiovascular training after smoking, and this then caused her to feel ill. She asked the researcher if she could stop the training, but she was ignored and forced to carry on. To begin with, no ethical clearance and project proposal form was completed and then submitted to the ethical committee. However, if this was done, the ethical committee would have declined the study due to this. It was ethically wrong for the young gymnasts to be smoking due to it's legal as they are underage, and they are not allowed to. As well as this, no consent has been given. Now, it's important that consent is given as the children are underage and they are being studied, and the results are going to be used in future details. This means that they are breaking the law over when it's ethically wrong. Therefore, they should have sent off the ethical committee form, and the ethically, morally wrong and legal issues would then be put correct. And they also should not have been deceded to. They were lied to, saying that the smoke would enhance their performance. However, the smoking would have deteriorated their performance due to affecting their lungs. Therefore, the researchers should have been completely honest with them and briefed them on the study truthfully, so that then they can make a decision on whether they want to be part of the study or not. And the last study is, another piece of research was to measure the gymnasts' weight and height to work out their BMI and see if their BMI would affect their sporting performance. The gymnasts were measured in front of one another, which caused the young athletes to become anxious and distressed due to not wanting other athletes to see their height or weight. The researchers taking the measurements were random people from the public. One gymnast was considered overweight when looking at her BMI, however was an excellent gymnast. The researchers made it obvious to her and the others about her result and made snide comments throughout the study about her BMI. This then led to the gymnast becoming distressed and uncomfortable to attend training again. No consent was given and results were shared online with a video recording of the process where the gymnasts were being weighed and having their height measured. To begin with, no consent was given for the research to take place and for the videos to be put online. However, consent is needed from the parents or guardian, as the gymnasts are young children. Therefore, it could then lead to prison sentences and fines, as no consent has been given and the videos have then been posted online. As well as this, random people are taking the measurements. This then involves physical interaction, and they have not been CRB checked. This again is against the law, as anyone working with children must be CRB checked before so. Thirdly, emotional harm could be caused, as they have not taken into consideration that the results are being taken in front of everyone can cause distress, and distress is something which is trying to be avoided. Therefore, to prevent this from happening, they could have separated the rooms away, and so results are kept private and confidential, and this will then prevent any emotional harm and snide comments being passed on. Lastly, the results should have not been shared and stayed anonymous, as one was individually violated by her results. However, this could have been prevented if the results are kept confidential and were done in a separate room from the others.